Hello, everyone. Nathaniel Gavronsky here, and I want to talk to you guys a little bit about what Trump said in the Oval Office about Gaza, Hamas, the Israeli IDF, and the hostages. Okay, so this is actually a pretty big change around in U.S. policy since the Joe Biden administration. But it has not been that big of a change in policy for the United States, with the exception of the Barack Obama and the Joe Biden administrations, respectively. Now, the United States has always had this very clear and very, very resolute. We don't negotiate with terrorists. We took out Soleimani when he ordered the killing of a single American. Now, that American, by the way, wasn't even a natural born American. He was an Iraqi who became an American and was killed. And Trump took out Soleimani because of it. That was a specific attack in question when Trump ordered Soleimani to be taken out. Historically, the United States has never negotiated with terrorists. When you've taken American hostages, the United States government did not negotiate. They took their hostages back. Now, we've had a couple of situations where we've broken that. All of them have been mostly under Democrats. Jimmy Carter in the Iran ordeal in 1979. And then we've had the Iranians had taken some American sailors prisoner during Barack Obama's term. And then the October 7th events that led to several Americans being held hostage by Hamas in Gaza. Each of those situations, the Americans negotiated, which had spurred on others to take Americans as hostages in the spirit of making the Americans negotiate. This has not been a successful strategy and hasn't been successful for anyone else that has negotiated with terrorists, because all it shows is we can keep taking people from that country hostage and we will keep getting paid for it. So this type of behavior has been encouraged by the weakness led by many Democratic presidents throughout our history. But when we have been very clear that we will not negotiate with terrorists and that we will take our hostages, we will take our people back, and we will remove you from the face of the earth in the process, has been a detrimental reaction to people who tried to cause harms to Americans. There are several American citizens that are being held captive in Gaza. You know, when ethnic Russians, people that were born in a country where Moscow was the capital, were being shelled in what was currently for Russia a foreign country, multiple times the Russians have acted to take their hostages, their people, and free them, to liberate them, to get them back from would-be aggressors. This happened in 2008 when the Georgians decided they were going to lay siege in South Ossetia and Abkhazia. These were areas that were ethnically non-Georgian, but were not really even ethnically Russian, but they were being attacked because they were not ethnically Georgian. And the Russians said, we are not going to tolerate that. And due to treaties from 1992 and 1994, the Russians went and removed the Georgian threat from those two areas, and the UN and the European Union could do nothing about it because it was already part of international law that Bill Clinton made Yeltsin sign twice. You know, that's what everyone Barack Obama wanted to do. Angela Merkel was very clear, you can't do anything. You're the ones who made this a legally binding requirement of the Russian government. In Ukraine, ethnic Russians, people who spoke Russian, were being bombed. In fact, 14,000 children were killed. Not like most of you heard about it, but they were killed. The U.S. government acknowledges that they were killed, and the Russians went into Ukraine, and we've been dealing with that process ever since. But Americans being held captive by a known terrorist organization, the American government has been like, yeah, you should let them go. We're not going to make you. And in fact, we're even going to give you aid, not only to the people of Hamas running Gaza, but to the Taliban. The Taliban has people within the borders of Afghanistan that are American citizens that could not get out in time, and those people live with the threat that they're going to be killed any day just because, well, the Taliban feels like, Tuesday is a good day. And the American government has done little to nothing about it. Here's $40 billion a week. That's negotiation with terrorism, and all that's going to do is create an environment to where Americans will be hunted down globally, so that the American government can be blackmailed into paying up. With Donald Trump, this is not the case. I think this Saturday by noon ultimatum is a good one, and it looks like Bibi is going to abide by it. They're releasing 2 people, then 3 people, then 2 people, and in response, the Israeli government was supposed to release back to Hamas people who took Israelis captive or had killed Israelis, and that's why the Israelis had them in jail in the first place. So I really don't see how this is a win-win for Israel to have to negotiate people who were innocently taken compared to individuals who were taken in the custody due to criminal acts of terrorism that the entire globe has acknowledged is illegal. So Donald Trump has the complete right to say, these are American citizens. I will blow you to smithereens if you don't let them go, because that is the weight of history of the United States. That if you hold our people hostage, you hold our people against their will, we will remove you from existence. And anything else is this collateral damage. That's not our problem. Let our people go or be erased. And I think Trump has been very clear on that. Now, as far as making Gaza a U.S. property, I don't like the idea, because I don't like the idea. I didn't say that there was any other option. I would prefer there not to have to be in this area for the rest of our existence. But this is a clash of civilizations. The people in Gaza, the Hamas-led people in Gaza, are never going to allow Israel to exist without being constantly under threat of bombardment, invasion, and death. And the same goes for Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. That really is not going to be a way that Israel can live a day-to-day, existence without being under constant threat of being bombed, terrorized, and harassed by people who don't want to, have a safe place for people of their specific background to be. Necessarily, is they want the erasure. They want to completely erase. They want to remove. They want to completely eliminate an ethnic group that they don't like. There are thousands, and I mean thousands, millions actually, of Arabs living in Israel that have no problem with living in Israel. They live their property. They're in the Supreme Court. They're in the Knesset, which is their Congress. They go to city councils. They're mayors of towns. They don't want to live in Gaza. They don't want to live in the West Bank. They don't want to. Why? Because they don't want to live the way that those people have led those governments, those organized government bodies in those areas have forced their people to live. Maybe that's a sign that maybe the Israeli government isn't the bad people here. The fact that Egypt doesn't want to take these people, the fact that Jordan is going to be forced to take them because Jordan is ethnically the same group of people that the Palestinians are. There is no ethnic group called the Palestinians. They lived in an area that was known as Palestine because the Romans called it, not what the native people there called it. The native people to that land call it Judea. In fact, that's why they're known as Jews, because that's where the name comes from. Arabs came from the Arabian Peninsula. Anywhere else that they exist is because they colonized it. Most Arabs are not the problem. Most Muslims are not the problem. Most of them live in peace. Most of them have nothing to do with this conflict, but they're being pushed into a position that they don't want to be in because of geopolitics. The quickest way to solve this, because then there's no geopolitical question to be asked. It just doesn't exist anymore. We move on. You don't see other countries laying down why their citizens are being held captive and being slaughtered. The US, the most powerful nation in the world, is like, yeah, you should please kindly, like Red Rover, send Ezekiel over. It's not. That's not happening. This is not some game. I completely support Donald Trump's plan and Bibi's plan to take the hostages back. Any longer, they might not be alive to even recover. The quicker we get in there and rescue them, the best chance they have of coming out of this alive. Is it possible that some of them may die? Yes, it is equally possible, and more likely that they will die being held in captivity past Saturday. So I am fully supportive of Donald Trump's ultimatum to Hamas to release all the hostages by Saturday at noon, or all hell will break loose. You know what? I hope Trump grabs every single military asset. I want him to grab every single spare troop. I hope Pete Hegseth is rounding up everyone, giving them pep talks, and I want to see a Normandy-style invasion, and I want to see the rest of Gaza liberated from Hamas, and then toward the people there that do want to live in peace, that do want to seek a coexistence with the global world, able to do so. Now, if they get to stay in Gaza and do that, or they have to go somewhere else, is not for me to say. I'm not going to be able to make that, to have any participation in that conversation. But if they would have not allowed Hamas to do what they did, this wouldn't have been a problem. This all stems from Hamas. This all stems from October 7th. There was a ceasefire. That ceasefire was in existence until October 6th. On October 7th, the Hamas militants broke that ceasefire. That ceasefire had lasted several years. I think it was 2005, 2006 that everyone had left. There was no conflict. But this is where we're at now. And sometimes how we wish things could be and how things really are two different things. And what the reality is that Gaza is destroyed. Gaza is not going to be what it was prior to the Hamas terrorist attacks on Israel on October 7th. If either Donald Trump's plan comes to fruition or an alternative plan comes into play, it is clear that what it was before will not be again. And and people in Hezbollah and southern Lebanon should also heed this warning that if they do not stop, if they continue to act as the aggressors, as terrorists, Donald Trump isn't going to stop with just Gaza. He's going to end this problem. And when the problem is over, as it is ended, the other countries are just, it's all academic at this point. It's over. They're gone. There is no state. There is not possibility of a two-state solution. There's no one there to create it. It's gone. At that point, you're going to have to start normalizing relations as the world is at that time, not as it was. So you better figure out what you want to do as the Palestinian Authority, and you better figure out what you want to do, people in Gaza, because this is it. Donald Trump is in office, and we're done playing. We're done. It's over. Either you release the hostages and you start making amends very quickly, or you better start looking for a couple of suitcases and a couple of tanks of gas, because you're leaving. And I wish it could have been another way. I have a lot of Arab friends, a lot of Muslim friends that aren't Arab, and a lot of Arab friends that aren't Muslim, and a lot of people that are Muslim that aren't even close to being Arab. And they're all sick. Everyone is sick of this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Once it's over, it's over. It's done, and that's where we need to go. So that's my stake on it. Trump, do what you need to do. Bibi, do what you need to do. Let's end this thing, and let's start moving towards a better future. This is Nathaniel Gavronsky, wishing you all a good night.